Hey there, welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into a really tough topic. Why do people do bad stuff? It's like that old story about the forbidden fruit, you know. Humans can be pretty complicated, and there's usually a whole bunch of reasons behind why they do what they do. But here's the deal. We're not talking about folks dealing with mental health stuff or soldiers doing their job. Nope, we're focusing on regular folks who end up crossing some serious lines. Turns out, a lot of the time it's about wanting more stuff, getting back at someone, or things just spiraling out of control. Most of these bad actions happen close to home, in the middle of arguments, or when things just aren't going right. It's like when everything seems cool on the surface, but underneath, things are all messed up. And that's when things can really go south fast. On the morning of January 12, 2019, it was reported that 65-year-old Michael Redlick had passed away, known in his circles as the former NBA executive with the Memphis Grizzlies and a beloved professor at the University of Central Florida. He died from a heart attack. Initially, however, upon the arrival of emergency services, it became clear that Mr. Redlick died from a stab wound to the chest. Various theories were considered, including self-inflicted harm. Later, forensic experts determined that the incident was a criminal act of taking a life. Sometime later, the perpetrator was identified. The person who helped Michael meet his end was his beloved wife. By June 2022, she stood trial. Yet, this story is not straightforward. She did not admit guilt for the intentional crime and frequently changed her testimony. The legal battle between the prosecution and defense was long and heated. Ultimately, the court's verdict was unexpected for everyone. What really happened in the Winter Park suburb of Florida, USA? Who is the true victim, and could the tragedy have been prevented? Let's explore together. Sitting in the defendant's chair is 46-year-old Danielle Redlick. The accused is of short stature and slim build. Her chestnut hair has visibly grayed, either because she had no opportunity to visit a hairdresser, having spent about 3 years in custody, or perhaps the gray is a testament to her true turmoil and stress. Until 2019, she was just an ordinary working American woman, a mother of 2 wonderful children, a specialist in multimedia communications. She was not particularly well known. However, after the crime against her husband, her name was frequently highlighted in the media. This is what happens when the dirty laundry of seemingly respectable spouses is aired publicly. Danielle was born in 1976 in Florida. After some time, her family moved to Cleveland, Ohio. Her childhood was typical in many ways. She grew up kind and well-mannered, with a creative nature. Danielle was the eldest child in her family. As she matured, her appreciation for beauty intensified. She enrolled at Valencia College, where she earned an Associate of Arts degree. Later, she was admitted to the psychology department at Baldwin Wallace University in 1996. Danielle's mother, Caitlin Aquino, remarried. However, the marriage was short-lived, lasting only 2 years, after which Caitlin passed away from cancer. It turns out that she had been battling breast cancer for a long time. Thanks to her husband's comprehensive insurance, she received high-quality medical care, which was the primary reason for legally formalizing their marriage. Unfortunately, the treatment ultimately did not yield the desired result. After his wife's death, the man became not only a widower, but also a true father to her children. Since it was difficult for him to raise them alone, he asked for help from Caitlin's eldest daughter. At that time, 22-year-old Danielle was living independently, but responded to the request. Thus, after Caitlin's death, Danielle, her brother and sister, and their stepfather, Michael Redlick, all ended up under one roof. Yes, you heard right. The very same Michael who later became Danielle's husband and was perpetrated on a winter evening in 2019. At first, their relationship was built on friendship. Danielle took care of the younger kids and worked part-time at a bar at night. Michael was building his career in professional sports, involved in player recruitment. He grew very attached to the children, who became like his own. He also felt comfortable with Danielle. Over time, she saw him as a dependable support. Despite the 20-year age difference, Their interaction was easy and natural. Gradually, the man and woman grew closer. Neither age nor status bothered them. However, Danielle initially didn't want to make their relationship public to her family and kept it hidden for a while. With his new partner, Michael felt younger and more energetic, and she felt loved and protected. Since he had good connections, he easily found her a new job in an advertising agency. Besides, he had a high income and devoted all his free time to the family. Overall, things were going well for both of them. After some time, Mr. Redlick received a tempting job offer. He was invited to become the vice president of corporate sales for the Memphis Grizzlies basketball club. However, the new job required moving to another state. Without hesitation, he asked Danielle to come with him, but she hesitated. Danielle didn't want to change her familiar lifestyle, and she was still studying, so she declined. Yet, their relationship continued long distance, and the lovers often saw each other. One day, he showed her the house he had bought for them, impressing her. The cottage was located in a picturesque area by the Mississippi River. The neighborhood was quiet and cozy. Ultimately, Danielle decided to move and live together. To ensure she had no doubts, he found her an interesting job in the radio industry. Later, Danielle recalled that at first, everything was perfect. It was only Michael's job that later brought changes. Many years later, during the trial against Danielle, her 15-year-old daughter Jaden testified. She spoke of how Michael was an excellent father who did a lot for his family. Along with her 8-year-old brother Sawyer, they attended one of the best schools, hoping to pursue careers in sports, thanks to their dad's encouragement and support in enrolling them in sports programs. Jaden was close to her father, which she couldn't say about her mother, whom she saw as hysterical, manipulative, and toxic at times. The young lady believed that Danielle instigated all the conflicts at home, while Michael tried to keep the family in peace intact. But was it really as the elder daughter perceived? And what caused discord in what seemed like a happy and united family? Mr. Redlick's new position came with increased responsibility and stress, and he had a difficult relationship with the management. This took a toll on him. He became very stressed and tired. Eventually, to relax and unwind, Michael turned to alcoholic beverages. Over time, this became a daily occurrence. He would often stay out late, returning home intoxicated and angry. The tension in the house was palpable. Danielle tried to support her husband, understanding his condition. After talking to her, it seemed he would calm down and promise to stop. But his promises were short-lived. One time, Michael missed a dinner they had planned together, which was not the first occurrence. But this time, they had specifically arranged to spend the evening together. Danielle was very upset and stated that if he couldn't make time for her, he should have warned her so she could make other plans. Heading towards the door, she made an ill-timed joke, which struck a nerve with Michael. He stood in the doorway and hit her across the face. The slap was so forceful that she staggered back. She then noticed that her clothes and the floor were splattered with blood. In shock, she recoiled from her husband, who began crying and apologizing. Clearly distressed, Michael tried to make amends. Immediately, he took his wife to a familiar sports doctor and explained what had happened. The doctor examined the unfortunate victim and provided first aid, then recommended seeing a dentist and a plastic surgeon, as the injuries were quite severe. Danielle even had a front tooth chipped. The next day, Michael arranged a memorable dinner, was very attentive and caring. Undoubtedly, his wife forgave him and did not report the incident anywhere. There was a fairly strict domestic violence law in the state, so Mrs. Redlick felt sympathy for her husband and decided not to cause him any further trouble. In fact, this was not the first warning sign. Danielle had already encountered similar behavior before the incident happened. While they were living together in Cleveland at a concert, Danielle chatted with an ex-boyfriend, which made Michael jealous. On their way home, he dropped a few sarcastic comments about it. Danielle responded in kind, unexpectedly. He hit her, then immediately apologized, noting that he did it because she hurt his feelings. Danielle forgave her partner, blaming herself as well. Over time, the incident was forgotten. In 2003, the Redlicks welcomed their first child, a daughter named Jaden. A year later, the couple decided to legalize their relationship. It was a bright period in their lives. Everything was going well. However, Michael still faced challenges at work. The management changed, and he couldn't get the promotion he had hoped for. 7 years later, the family grew with the addition of a son named Sawyer. The parents were fully engaged in raising their children. If it weren't for one but Michael's job, the tension escalated, and he began drinking again. This led to more frequent conflicts. During one argument, he grabbed Danielle by the throat and pinned her against the wall, which terrified her. This time, his wife couldn't tolerate the rough behavior. She packed up, took the children, and moved in with her relatives. It's worth noting they did not approve of the marriage initially, but eventually came to terms with it. Michael repeatedly visited her, apologizing and asking her to come back home. After some time, their relationship was restored. The following years were unstable. The Redlicks moved several times. The family patriarch was offered a job in California, where they lived for about 5 years. This period could hardly be called successful. The man struggled with his issues and continued to indulge in drinking. There came a time when both spouses were unemployed and lived off their savings. In 2014, another move was on the horizon, this time to Indiana. However, the prospects were promising to find a new home and settle matters. The man went ahead first. Danielle stayed in California with the children. They needed time to sell their old property and belongings. The constant moving had all become exhausting. It was difficult for the children to adapt to the rapidly changing environments. The whole process took a year. During this time, the family's financial situation improved. However, the marital relationship underwent changes. The distance and infrequent meetings affected them. Danielle and Michael grew distant and barely communicated. When the spouses finally reunited, they faced new issues. At one point, Danielle began to suspect her husband of infidelity. He became unusually cold and distant, and the former passion had faded. However, Michael found the strength to confess that his age and health were to blame. He had been embarrassed to mention this earlier, fearing he would lose his younger wife. But Danielle was grateful for his honesty and supported him as before. After trying numerous medications, the couple decided to undergo a course of hormone injections. Testosterone injections helped Michael rejuvenate physically and mentally. He seemed to become younger, regaining his former energy and vigor. With this came an increase in his aggressiveness. One evening, while watching a movie together, Michael fell asleep. Danielle went upstairs to rest. The next morning, he entered the bathroom while she was brushing her teeth and struck her on the head. He justified his action by saying she had not woken him up the evening before. She responded that she was tired of this and was leaving. This only angered him further, and he began to choke her. Poor Danielle could not defend herself and began to lose consciousness. At one moment, she felt like she was dying. After some time, Mrs. Redlick opened her eyes and saw her husband standing over her, scared and confused, begging for forgiveness. All Danielle could do was silently crawl away. After this incident, they continued to live in the same house and raise their children together. But from that time, their relationship fundamentally changed. Apparently, a point of no return had been reached. The man began to drink more frequently, and conflicts in the home increased, even over trivial matters. However, the woman did not leave him. Despite her dissatisfaction with the situation and resentment towards her husband, she continued to love him deeply. The ongoing situation also affected Danielle. She became nervous and irritable, withdrawing into herself. To distract herself, she took up photography. Nevertheless, their family still appeared respectable, as most of their disagreements did not extend beyond the home. By the end of 2014, the Redlicks finally settled in Florida. This time, Michael decided to change his career path. Tired of the constant stress, he took a position as Director of External Affairs and Partnership Programs at the University of Central Florida and began teaching. Although his income was less than what he made in the NBA, the job brought him enjoyment and stability. Initially, the family rented a home, but after a year, they purchased their own property in the quaint area of Winter Park. Their family home was impressive. The house was designed in a Mediterranean style and had a huge square footage. Danielle favored the attic floor, which served as her retreat. She often spent nights there, especially when Michael had bouts of anger. Testosterone injections rejuvenated him and restored their intimate life. But even during intimate moments, he could be harsh. Their relationship remained tense and unstable. Against this backdrop, Danielle developed an alcohol dependency while Michael worked and supported the family. Danielle managed the household and children, increasingly withdrawing into herself. The numerous disputes eventually led to the couple separating in 2016. Despite this, Michael continued to see the children and support them financially, paying the bills. By this time, Danielle had found a job at a school. New acquaintances helped her out of her depression, and her responsibilities restored her independence. However, she still continued to see Michael, who could come and go as he pleased. During one of these days, another argument ensued, after which Danielle ended up in the hospital with a concussion. She kept silent again and did not tell the truth about what happened, fearing it would cause problems for her husband. But this time, Michael took her silence for granted. During questioning, Danielle confessed that in early October 2016, something extraordinary happened. Her husband had tried to run her over with his car. She was saved only because she managed to jump into the bushes. After this, Danielle went to the police department. However, when detectives began to inquire in detail about the incident, she changed her mind and left. The reason was the same as always. Later, the couple reconciled and moved back in together. However, this turned out to be a fateful decision for both of them. At around 9 a.m. on January 12, 2019, a 911 call was made. On the other end of the line, a woman introduced herself as Danielle Redlick and reported that her husband, Michael, had died from a heart attack. When the rescue service arrived at the scene and entered the house, they immediately noticed a strong smell of cleaning agent. At the entrance to the living room, the team encountered a bucket filled with pink-colored water. Beyond this, a scene from a thriller unfolded. A man lay on the floor in a pool of blood, lifeless. It was clear that the unfortunate man had not died from a heart attack, as his wife had claimed, but from a penetrating knife wound. The woman who made the call was also found with cuts on her wrists. Paramedics provided first aid before taking her to the hospital. Following them, the police began their investigation. When law enforcement examined the scene, they were certain that Michael Redlick's life had been taken. It was unlikely that he could have inflicted such a fatal injury on himself. Later, forensic analysis confirmed that the blood traces in the home belonged to the deceased. The pink liquid in the bucket at the entrance was nothing but diluted blood. Someone, possibly the homeowner herself, had tried to erase a trail leading from the bedroom to the living room, indicating that the body had been dragged. Despite the cleaning efforts, not all evidence was destroyed. Blood spatter was found in the corners of the room and on the walls. Moreover, a large knife lay at the entrance to the kitchen, and 3 smaller knives were found in the sink. Detectives were eager to speak with Danielle. Therefore, once doctors reported that her injuries were not life-threatening, she was questioned. During the interview, she repeatedly changed her statements. Initially, she claimed to have thought her husband died of heart disease. Later, she stated that he had taken his own life following an argument. However, experts refuted her claims. Such a wound is difficult to self-inflict, and individuals intending to end their life usually choose a simpler and less painful method. The autopsy showed that Michael died from blood loss. With timely medical help, his life could have been saved. Additionally, he had a lacerated left eye. Toxicological tests also revealed a high level of alcohol in his system. The investigation revealed that a few days before the incident, there was an argument between the spouses witnessed by their elder daughter. Michael had been drinking and burst into the bathroom where Danielle was hiding. However, their daughter Jaden intervened, taking the bottle away from him. After this, Danielle left the house and returned once her husband had fallen asleep. According to the girl, it was the first time she had seen such a burst of anger in her father, for which he later apologized multiple times. She still maintained that he was a loving and caring father, while asserting that her mother was the instigator of conflicts. The next day, the couple reconciled. Michael invited his wife and children to a soccer game. However, according to witnesses, Danielle appeared upset and was virtually non-communicative. That evening, the parents dropped their kids off at a friend's house for a sleepover and were left alone. Later, Danielle stopped by McDonald's and returned home around 10:30 p.m. Upon entering the house, she found her husband drunk during dinner. Danielle received a message from an unknown man. Michael saw it, bit off a piece of his hamburger, and spit it at his wife. He then attacked her, attempting to strangle her. In self-defense, Danielle grabbed the first thing she could, a knife, and stabbed him in the chest. He fell and began to bleed profusely. According to the defendant, she immediately called emergency services, but mistakenly dialed the wrong number. Her actions were later corroborated during the investigation. In a state of shock, she lay down next to Michael and fell asleep until morning. When asked by the prosecution why she lied during the emergency call and subsequent questioning, Mrs. Redlick explained that she was afraid. She was concerned that no one would believe she had acted in self-defense. There were reasons for this fear. Shortly before the incident, she had been involved in a scuffle with friends. When police arrived at the scene, she resisted, attempting to bite one of them. She also refused to cooperate with the investigation, leading to charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Danielle had been on probation for about a year. It was also established that the cuts on her wrists were self-inflicted. She claimed she had tried to end her life due to the emotional turmoil, but the nature of the injuries suggested otherwise. They were superficial and not life-threatening. Therefore, her claims were not believed. Investigators also discovered that Danielle was far from a role model. After learning of Michael's infidelities, she signed up on a dating site where she interacted with men and retaliated by being unfaithful. Her profile status declared that she was single and not in a relationship. Analysis of countless messages between Michael and Danielle showed that she still loved her husband. Once she learned of his affairs, she felt betrayed and disillusioned. She also found out that Michael planned to leave her, despite appearing repentant and desiring to mend their relationship. Danielle explained that it was hard for her to understand and accept her husband's actions. She was heartbroken that she had dedicated the best years of her life to a man who did not appreciate her. The prosecution used this information against her. The prosecutor argued that the crime was premeditated, in a fit of rage, because she could not forgive his infidelity and the impending divorce. Like Mr. Redlick, she was also prone to fits of anger, confirmed by their neighbors who noted that the couple often argued loudly, escalating into physical altercations. However, Michael and Danielle were described differently by those who knew them. Michael was portrayed positively as kind and helpful, while Danielle was seen as quarrelsome. Video evidence was presented showing the defendant acting irrationally and attacking her husband. Friends and Michael's brother agreed with this portrayal. Subscribe for more videos.